Where do I start? I'm going to try to keep this video just focused on the topic at hand. I don't want to get all philosophical and go down the avenues I typically go down. I just want to preface this, by saying that I give this article. It's an article that I found because every day I sit when I eat or whatever. I look on my phone and I go through what the gun politics are in New Jersey right now, because you got the whole the Ninth Circuit Ward smacking down, or Ninth Circuit Court smacking down the whole San Diego, good cause, which is the same as justifiable need in New Jersey, right? You got that going on. Then you got Sweeney and the Democrats trying to reduce the capacity to 10 rounds as if that's going to do anything to resolve crime in New Jersey. Now, it is very difficult to be African American and even try to get your foot in the gun community on YouTube. Okay. I consider myself, I have my streaks of militancy. Okay. And there's a lot of, because the gun community on YouTube is really monolithic, and you can say the gun community all over the country is very monolithic. Typically, white male. That's what the gun community is. Black people have their views about guns because of the association with gangs and drugs and that all that's a byproduct of poverty. Okay. And, I've seen a couple of black people on YouTube that have, tried to articulate some point, but they don't understand racial politics. Not every black person understands racial politics. Some black people are like wholesale assimilationist socially, but we already know that blacks and whites are not on the same level economically speaking. And that creates a huge divide that a lot of times, you get people within the gun community that just want to point the finger and say things, use coded language like urban or thug, never enough, right? There's people that do that, and they don't get into any of the nuances of what's really going on. And there is no other voice on YouTube or on the internet pertaining to, the African American community or how it's viewed and gun culture. People jump up and say Mr. Coleon Noir, but Mr. Coleon Noir is backed by the NRA, which represents what? Another monolithic group of white males. Okay. So I've seen him try to bring it forth, and I'd say he's done a pretty good job, but at the same time, I noticed he stayed away from the Trayvon Martin case, and I'm like, you look like Trayvon Martin. What would have happened if George Zimmerman ran up on you and you had your carry concealed? How would have that played out? I saw a lot of people in the gun community jumping up, talking about, just immediately knee-jerk reaction, taking sides with George Zimmerman, until later on, he was shown to be an asshole, and now everybody wants to disassociate themselves from him. Okay. We could talk about the whole Michael Dunn case. Okay. I know that Mr. Coleon Noir is like Barack Obama, where he can only say so much. Okay. Because he's sponsored. You get what I'm saying? He can only say so much. He can't say how it really is, which I'm sure, he's intelligent enough to know how it really is, but trying to convey that in a way where, you're speaking to predominantly white male Republicans, who always want to you're throwing up the race card because you don't speak about race on their terms, but you speak about it on your terms or as your experience as an African American. See, they don't like that. Okay. So anyway, now that I've put all my thoughts aside, okay, on my whole issue with the whole gun community on YouTube. Okay. So I go on, I type in New Jersey gun laws, right? And I get this post, or this it's from newjersey.com, and it's called letter gun issue is complex and a recipe for disaster. And I believe this is March 8th, 2014. Okay. And I believe it's by John Decker. That's the name that's at the bottom. Okay. Now, John Decker makes some valid points. Okay. He does make some valid points, and he's approaching it from an intellectual standpoint, but I still believe that there's intellectual fallacies and a little bit of intellectual dishonesty in what he's saying. Okay, but I will acknowledge the certain things that I'm glad you put it in that term or that context. Let's talk about that. But he, because he's an anti-gunner, okay, you see the agenda behind it all, right? But I'm going to address it from an intellectual standpoint, purely an intellectual standpoint. I'm not going to get into the whole racial context or any of that stuff, okay? Because the article really wasn't even about that, right? So he responds to the editor. He says, I read last week's letters to the editor from John, I think it's Behr, B-E-H-R-E, on concealed guns, and couldn't believe how much misinformation could be contained in such a short letter. The most glaring was, gun owners are the most responsible people in the world. Does a special gun fairy visit you after you buy a gun and make you responsible? Gun owners aren't an exclusive club. There's no entrance exam. Virtually anyone who is reasonably sane and without a felony conviction can buy a gun. You don't have to look far to find hundreds of cases of legal gun owners committing crime and murder. And of course, we never hear of a gun owner being drunk or otherwise incapacitated. Right? Now, what is the problem with what he's saying? Right? Now, here's what I agree with. Can anybody make a blanket statement that all gun owners are the most responsible people in the world? No. Nobody can say that. We all know that that's a false statement. Even responsible gun owners know that that's a false statement. Right? But where's my problem with what he says? He says, you don't have to look far to find hundreds of cases of legal gun owners committing crime and murder. And I'm like, what are we comparing this to? Here's where the intellectual dishonesty comes in. What kicked off the whole gun debate? What kicked it off? The whole Sandy Hook thing, right? That's what kicked it off. Was there this slew of responsible gun owners running around killing people that we had to jump up and say, oh, we must do something about it. We must do something about it, right? No, there wasn't. Right? Yes, you have isolated cases of, George Zimmerman or Michael Dunn. You have situations like that, but does that mean that, okay, we have people that drive around in cars, right? And every weekend there are thousands of people who drive around drunk and intoxicated, endangering everybody else on the road. Are we running around revoking everybody's license because of the fact that we have thousands of drunk drivers on the road at any given time? Not only that, but more people die from drunk driving car accidents than they do gun violence. All gun violence. Urban gun violence combined with the little small minuscule aspects of law-abiding gun owners committing crimes. And I'm like, what do you mean by crime? Now, if you want to talk about a crime of passion, somebody, a man gets heated and his wife shoots him, or a wife, like what happened with Steve McNair, even though that wasn't his wife, it was his jump off, but she shoots him, right? These are small, isolated incidences, and to use them as your platform to basically put it in juxtaposition to the real gun crime, which would be what we see in Patterson or Trenton or Camden or Atlantic City or things of that nature, right? That's so intellectually dishonest. It's not even funny. Okay, not only that. But then, of course, we never hear about the gun owner being drunk or otherwise incapacitated. And I'm like, again, where is this going on where in New Jersey, gun owners can't even carry concealed? I'm sure there are plenty of gun owners that go out on the weekend and get drunk and get incapacitated. But guess what? They don't have their gun on them. Their gun's where? In their house. Now, again, if you want to talk about situations of domestic violence, that's different. That's different than when we're out here talking about carry concealed. Technically speaking, they can't even be in the same room as each other, because a person that has a gun in the home and people who are out here in the streets, carrying concealed, if somebody's in their home, that's like them being carried concealed all the time, is it not? Right? Why would you put those two things in the same room? If a person is a gun owner, even though the state of New Jersey doesn't give out carry concealed permits, right? It has nothing to do with the carry concealed permit in and of itself, or the idea of other people out here walking around with carry concealed permits, when whatever is going to go down in their home is going to go down in their home, because they don't need a carry concealed permit in their home. They're already a gun owner. Next one, or continuing. Owning a gun doesn't suddenly increase your IQ or decision-making ability. While I'm sure Bear is a responsible gun owner, he makes the common error of assuming all gun owners are alike. I agree with them there. I fully agree that most gun owners are responsible. Thank you. Again, you're negating your own point. You're like... But the difference between all and most is hundreds of lives lost. It's like, wow, like, you just admit that responsible gun owners are responsible, or right? Most are responsible, not all. Again, like, that is such a lame arguing tactic. It's most, not all. It's most, not all. Like, as though you're really challenging or refuting anything. Keep the change. Keep the change. Again, drunk drivers riding around, smashing cars into people, killing people, people on text messaging. That's not even has any element of malice to it. Right? But does that mean we're going to revoke everybody's license so that lives are saved because, there's the potential of people texting while driving, or the potential of people driving drunk? See, the issue that people have with guns is the idea that somebody can cause instantaneous death behind malice, and it's used as a tool to kill, as opposed to ever be interpreted as used as a tool to defend. I notice these anti-gun people never talk about all the people out here who use a gun to defend themselves than a gun being used in an act of crime by, hold on, let me specify like he's specifying, being used by a law-abiding citizen. How many more? Let's compare law-abiding citizens using their guns, the responsible gun owners, to defend themselves versus responsible gun owners using the gun to kill somebody else with malicious intent. Get real. Apples to orange comparison. Continuing. Relaxing guns laws would simply increase the number of cases, altercations, escalating to murder. Recently, we have two prime examples from Florida, a shooting case of texting in a movie theater and a death resulting from loud music in a car at a gas station. There is zero possibility that there would have been a death if responsible citizens in question could not carry guns. I call bullshit on that one. Okay. What I will admit is that yes, when you have guns in a situation, any situation can escalate to the gun being used to cause death. But the idea that the gun where does he say this? If they didn't have guns, citizens in question could not carry guns, or what does it say? There is zero possibility. Notice this. He wants to talk about all or most, but then he goes, there is zero possibility that there would have been a death if the responsible citizens in question could not carry guns. That's a lie. That's a joke. I direct you to the case in Mississippi where those teens ran the black guy over with their SUV and then backed up and ran him over again. Get real. What else was I going to say about that? There was one more thing I was going to say about that. Recently we were prior to the shooting because of texting in the movie theater and resulting. Yeah, again, you're always going to have those assholes. You're always going to have the potential for that. But why is it that like those two cases somehow overshadow the reality of somebody using a gun to defend themselves, you know, whether it's a home invasion. How about the woman that got her ass beat, you know, in the house, right? All the racial comments that flew out of the black guy that beat up some white woman in her house, and it was all on tape in New Jersey, and the racism was flying all over the place, right? How about that situation? Would I support her having a gun to defend herself so that guy couldn't beat her like he did? Absolutely, I would support that. But how come you're not bringing that example up? Or how come you're not bringing up Amber Long in Philadelphia, which they still haven't found the two attackers that shot and killed her when she was walking around in Fishtown with her mom and had the purse, and the guy wanted the purse and she wouldn't give it up, and he turned around and shot her in the chest. Where did they get their guns? Right? Which is going to bring me to another point that he makes later on. Bear's Second Amendment argument is inaccurate. The founding fathers felt gun ownership was a way to protect us from a tyrannical government. It had absolutely nothing to do with whether we should be able to carry guns in a movie theater or for personal protection away from the home. Now, you know what's flawed about this? First off, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you were there when they were writing the Second Amendment. I'm sorry. Not to mention the fact that it says the right to keep, right, which we would all logically assume would be like you can keep it like at your house, right? And bear, which means what? What does bear mean? Bear means in your hands. Bear means on your person. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, here's where the racial politics come in. The vast majority of these gun laws were passed in 1968 during the race riots, or at the end of the race, or after Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy got shot, Malcolm X got shot, okay, and people were running around with guns. You had the Ku Klux Klan running around with guns. Then you had the Black Panthers running around with guns, and oh, you know, black people with guns, even though they're unloaded, scares the bejesus out of white people. Right? That's when those laws were passed, because we had all this strife and racial tension. Okay? That's when those gun laws, you know, were passed. Basically, to keep guns out of the hands of minorities. And when you look at America and you look at this country and you look at the gun laws, anytime you see high concentrations of minorities who are economically disenfranchised, discriminated against, and living in poverty, then you're going to see these strict gun laws that basically say no carry law. I go to New York, I go to LA, I go to Philadelphia, not Philadelphia, excuse me, because even though they're trying to destroy carry concealed in Philadelphia, but the rest of the state is basically Alabama. It's all red. But, you know, even New Jersey, you know, they don't want carry concealed. Why? It's got a large minority population. Isn't it strange how all the large minority population places have the most strict gun laws? Isn't that strange? Now, if you're racist, it's not strange, because if you're racist, you jump up and sit there and say, well, that's just how they are. We don't want them having guns. But see, and this is what I don't like about the gun community, because the only reason that the Second Amendment is being challenged by them is now it is starting to affect them, when it was cool for it to affect minorities. Okay? That's one of the reasons I don't co-sign, and I'm not a member of the NRA or anything like that. It was cool when it was just, nobody was saying anything when it was just affecting minorities. But now that the far left-wing Democrats are saying, we don't want you to have guns either, now all of a sudden they're concerned about, you know, they're like nudging black people like, don't you want to have guns to protect yourself? If you know, if it's hard for the KKK to press black people, if black people had guns, don't you know? You know, I mean, now they're coming out with that, and that's one of the things that I can't stand, and that's one of the things I resent. Where are we at? And then I mean, I could make the argument about time has changed. You know what I mean? I can make the argument about that there's millions of guns that are out here that are cheaply manufactured. They're put out on the markets. They've been out there, you know, and it's going to bring me to another point. I don't want to forget it, but I'll continue with the article anyway. Most of the studies on less restrictive gun laws are fundamentally flawed. Very few studies look at just the concealed firearms laws or even differentiate between handguns and long gun ownership. That's not true. New Jersey differentiates like hell when it comes to long guns versus handguns. You know, most states different. I forget what the law is, but you can't buy a handgun in a state that's not yours. Right? I can go to Pennsylvania and buy a shotgun. I can go to, Virginia and buy, an AR-15 variant, with a non-collapsible stock and a muzzle brake. I can do that, but in the terms of a handgun, can't do that. Why? Because handguns are concealable, right? If you're gonna, do something, commit a crime, nobody's gonna be walking around with, a gun with a 16-inch barrel. Most of where am I at? There's also the implicit assumption that gun laws alone have the greatest influence on crime, and that simply is not true. That is simply not the case. I agree with him 100% on that statement. I give him credit for acknowledging that. Okay, even as a gun grabber, I give him credit on that. Gun crime relates far more to social economic status and how densely populated and racially diverse and urban centers are than to any gun law. Take these into account, and restrictive gun laws look more attractive. Now I don't know what his point there is, because why would they look more attractive? Why would gun laws look more attractive if you just stated what the real problems are, which have nothing to do with guns, right? He says gun crime relates far more to social economic status and how densely populated and racially diverse the urban centers are than to any gun law. Now, I don't understand what the statement is about how racially diverse it is, because the urban areas are not racially diverse. Okay, you have a concentrated area of poor and impoverished black and brown people. That is what it is. And the only economies that exist there are the narco economy, the drug economy. Because, like, look at Kensington, Pennsylvania. Okay, the Badlands. Right? You see, did anybody see the YouTube video of the woman nodding off on the bus? Yeah, that's the Northeast largest open air market for drugs and narcotics. Okay? And that area is demographically majority white. Right? But you got the Colombia, you got the Mexicans, they took over what the Colombians had, right? The blacks that are stuck there, they're the ones selling the drugs. Right. And then you got white people that are not only who live there, and then Hispanics who live there who outnumber the blacks as well. You got white suburbanites who come out there to get high. OK, there's no economy there, and there's no economy there because the factories disappeared. They went away. America deindustrialized. That's where the working class people of Philadelphia back in the 50s and the 60s, that's where they were. That's where they operated, and that's where they existed. Hold on 1 second. My thing had to reboot. Where am I at? So I was talking about Kensington and deindustrialization. Let me get back to the main topic. There is a lot of evidence suggests lax gun laws lead to more guns in criminal hands. Why? First, most criminals get guns through theft. And when more people have guns, when more people have guns, more guns are stolen. Now, I'll agree with that, but look where the contradiction is, right? I'll agree with that. Like, guns obviously are stolen. Like, the only way that a criminal is going to get a gun is through law-abiding people who are purchasing guns. But the stupid part to that argument is there's this belief that if you eradicated all law-abiding people from having guns, that the guns that are already out there are going to somehow just dry up. Like, they're all just going to break all at once, and criminals won't be able to use them, and the price of guns will simply skyrocket. What you'll end up with before you even get to that point, right, is you'll end up with a population that is unarmed and the criminal element is armed. And that's what these people do not get. That's what they don't seem to understand. Right? Most of the people out here that are criminals, like, I know a couple people that have guns and shouldn't have guns. And you know what they're using? They're using stuff like Lorsons. They're using stuff like Jimenez's, or whatever you want to call them, the Jimenez gun. They're using stuff from the 70s. They're using old revolvers. You're not gonna go out here and stop a drug dealer and, you know, he's got a brand new, you know, XDM on him. You know, 3.8 stainless steel slide XDM with 19 rounds. He's not going to have a brand new gun like that on him. He's going to have an old gun. He's going to have a Ruger P95 or a Ruger P89 or 85. Okay, he's going to have guns like that. He's going to have an old Glock, Generation 2 Glock. And I'm saying, though, that's on the nice end. Most of them have these cheap guns. I remember Camden did a piece on the type of guns that they're picking up off of the streets. And the nicest gun that was on there, the only semi-automatic firearm gun that was on there was a P95. The rest of them were old Smith & Wesson, revolver type of guns. Snub-nosed pistols and the little tiny Saturday Night Special guns from the 70s with the European mag release at the butt plate. They're not rocking the latest high tech. Oh, let me get that CZ P07. They're not sporting that. That's not what they're using. So the idea that all these guns, they all got stolen. I'll tell you where they're getting a lot of their guns from. They're getting a lot of their guns from people who straw purchase. Now that is something that I agree with. The people who basically have a clean record. They go into a gun store, they buy 3 guns, and then they sell them to the drug dealer or whatever, and they get money for it. For selling the guns. And in states where handguns are not registered, like Pennsylvania, okay, they can do that. That's where a lot of the guns are coming from. They're not even coming from the gun shows, what this guy is talking about. I know this gun show loophole. And this is what pisses me off. If you believe in the gun show loophole, go into a gun show and try to buy a gun without getting a background check. Try it. Now, the only way you're going to get it is you're going to get it from somebody at the gun show who wants to sell a gun, and they don't give you a thorough enough around back check. They don't say, I only sell to people that have CCWs. That is the responsibility of the gun owners. If gun owners want to protect, themselves from all these stupid laws, then gun owners should make it a point to make sure that the people that they sell their firearms to should at least have a firearms ID card or a CCW themselves. One of the two, depending on what state you're in. Okay? You don't sell, a random gun to random people. And I don't think that most law-abiding gun owners are even doing that. But this notion where it's like this gun show loophole where it makes it sound like you go to the table or you go to the kiosk and you say, yeah, I want that. And they don't do any background check whatsoever is patently false. That is so insanely false. It's not even funny. And if you doubt me, I go to the gun show at Oaks in PA and try to get a gun, and I guarantee you won't get one. And where am I at? Second, states with lax gun laws are the source of illegal guns in other states. I'll give him that in terms of relativity. I'll give him that. Relative to New Jersey, most of the guns are coming outside of the state from more lax states. That is a true statement. Okay? It doesn't help for New Jersey to have strict gun laws when a gun dealer can drive 20 minutes to Pennsylvania gun show and get all the supplies he needs. That's not where they're getting their guns from. He's not getting it from the gun show. They're getting it mostly from straw purchases. They're not even getting it. My last point, because I got people calling me. His last point about the idea that guns are coming from more lax states. Okay? Let's go with that. The guns are coming from states with more lax gun laws. Isn't that all the more reason to allow CCW in the state of New Jersey? Because apparently and obviously the New Jersey cannot stop what's going on in other states. I'm saying let's just go with the argument that all these guns are coming from other states. Okay, so that means what? The criminals have the guns in the state of New Jersey and the law-abiding citizens don't. And you'd have to be a moron to believe that the criminals who are leaving the state or importing guns into this state, who by definition are already breaking the law, okay, are going to follow any of the new laws that New Jersey puts in place, which are only going to affect law-abiding citizens. It makes absolutely no sense. Not only that, going to affect law-abiding citizens who already cannot carry in the state of New Jersey. It's about as stupid as the new law that was already on the books of you can't carry a firearm on school property. I'm like, in a state that doesn't even issue concealed carry? Are you serious? Are you serious? You know, these are the type of lawmakers that we have. You know, you can't do what we already told you that you can't do, and you don't have the rights or the privilege to do. I'm like, well, how? Like, I'd have to, like, you'd be breaking like 3 laws before you even got onto the school grounds. You'd be breaking the law in walking out your front door with the gun. You'd be breaking the law in driving to the school property. And then when you got there, you'd be breaking another law because you're on school property with a firearm. So you're already, like, you see what I'm saying? Like there is, the reality of guns is the fact that, you know, most of the time people don't get caught until they commit a crime. They don't get caught until they commit crime. Have I ever had a gun on me in New Jersey when I shouldn't have? Absolutely. Could I have gone to jail for many, many years? Absolutely. You know, but depending on where I was and what the situation was, you know, I'm like, well, I'd rather have it on me. Now, that's not something I would say practice in New Jersey all the time or regularly, because you'll get your ass caught the hell up. You know, but the reality is I've broken the law many times, right? But it's not until you get caught that it actually even matters. Just like we have licenses for cars and people drive around and they drive their cars, but guess what? Somebody can go out and they can get drunk every day. But guess what? Nothing's going to happen until the day they get caught. It's when they get caught that your laws are enforceable. It's when they get caught that you can actually do something about it. You know, but what New Jersey wants to do, like as though criminal, like, it's like you're already breaking the law as a criminal for carrying a gun illegally. You're already breaking the law. What does throwing a 10-round magazine restriction do? You go to court and, like, you know, the criminal goes to court and the officer says, or the judge says, you're going to jail for 7 years because you broke the law for carrying a gun. But in addition to carrying a gun, you're also going to do another 5 years because you had 5 more rounds in your magazine than you should have. You see what I'm saying? Like, all that does is add to the whole prison industrial complex, right? All that does is, and not to mention the fact that our whole justice system is broken because none of these people are able to be reincorporated into society. Right? Like, it's like the society creates criminals with non-violent felons and all that other stuff. And then we don't incorporate them back in society because we already know, right? All job applications are online. They all ask you, what did you have a felony? Right? They all ask you these things, right? And if you say yes, they don't even look at you, which is going to what? Have you resort what? Back to a life of crime because you cannot be reincorporated back into society, right? And it just so happens that all of this is happening disproportionately to black and brown people living in urban environments who just so happen to be, below the poverty limit. Oh, whoop-de-doo. I wonder what that has to do with. Oh, I guess I'm throwing the race card on the table. Oh, let's go with the Republican, hardcore angle of, oh, they're just all lazy. They're all lazy despite the fact that when you drive through any major city across America, you don't see any more smokestacks like you used to back in the 50s and the 60s. You don't see any more factories like there's all these jobs for them to walk into with, say this and I'm gone. There are no jobs. There are no jobs. And nobody seems to care about any of these social issues or these economic issues until it spills over into their backyard, until it spills over into their house. None of these gun laws are going to do anything because nobody wants to address the root cause because that's too hard. It's too hard to address the crappy schools in the inner city. It's too hard to address, how generational poverty affects the minds of people and the culture that they grow up in. Because again, if you don't have access to money, if the society says that you should have some material well-being so that you can be, have some pride about yourself, but yet you don't have access to it, you don't want to define yourself by that. So what are you going to do? You're going to create a subculture where your manhood, because let's face it, it's mostly men who are getting locked up. Your manhood is going to be defined by something other than, your traditional a role as a man in being productive in society. If you don't have access to gainful employment, you don't want to be defined by gainful employment. You want to be defined by what your peers are defining themselves by, who are in the same situation, in the same boat that you're in. But people don't want to accept that reality. They want to sit there and say, oh, that's just how they are, blah, 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 blah. And then go and create more gun laws that really aren't going to do anything to stop what's going on in that environment. And then not only that, but when, the blight and the crime and the poverty spills out from that area into more prosperous areas, then what they're doing is they're taking away the people who do, have a more prosperous life from defending themselves. Granted, I look at the situation like, if you keep people in that much of a situation of despair, some of that is going to spill onto you. But at the same time, I still believe in people who are living better to not be subject to somebody who just got dealt the wrong card since the day they were born and end up resorting to a life of crime, and it's going to affect me and my family. I believe that those people should be able to defend themselves. But none of this is going to stop until people go out here and really address the root of the problem, which they're not doing, which is the socioeconomics of it, the discrimination of it, the racism of it. Nobody wants to talk about that, at least not on their own terms. They want to put it in some obscure context and act like, oh, that's not really the problem. And even do like Barack Obama and sit there and say that these people are making excuses of themselves, or they're lazy, or they don't want to do this and they don't want to do that. And that's garbage. That's garbage. The opportunities are not there. You give me the ability to go out into Camden and dish out some $50,000 jobs where men can take care of their families. And I guarantee you I can get a whole bunch of them off the street. But remember, the context of this whole gun control debate didn't start with what's going on in inner cities. It didn't start with urban plight. It started with, a deranged white boy shoots up a school in Connecticut. Which lets me know just how much people really don't care about what's going on in inner cities.